Welcome back. President Trump calls it a disgrace, and that is something both Republicans and Democrats can agree upon for very different reasons. The president claims the now declassified memo written by Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee is evidence the Department of Justice and FBI relied on Trump haters to obtain court orders to do surveillance on Trump campaign staffers. Others say the real disgrace is the president would declassify a purely partisan memo in an obvious attempt to undermine the criminal investigation of himself. There is a huge local political race taking place here in Sarasota right now, and we're going to be talking about it, but there is a real and legitimate concern about this going on in Washington. And joining us right now are two of the most respected minds in local politics, Jack Brill, the vice chairman of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Rita Ferrandino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party. Did I build you up enough?
I think that's great.
Yeah.
How about a handshake to start?
There we go.
There you go.
So I'm really interested in what your takes on this, because I know that, Jack, I know you're about to quote Congressman Rooney from the southern part of our viewing area, but equally you'll have other people on the other side saying that this memo, which we have here, and all three of us have labored to read it, is really one-sided. They did not release the Democratic version of this memo, and it's over and above the objections of President Trump's hand-picked FBI director.
All true. And you're right. We have labored to try and read through this, trying to follow the various pieces and how the FISA warrants were issued, who was behind it, the GPS opposition, Fusion GPS opposition firm, who hired them first, then when did Hillary Clinton's campaign hire them to do this? I mean, it's convoluted at best.
And keep in mind, Fusion GPS was originally hired by Marco Rubio to do this work.
Right. And when he bowed out of the race, Hillary Clinton's campaign picked it up. Right. So, and you've got an MI6 agent involved. It's just trying to, it's goofy, and I'm going to read the quote that Congressman Rooney put out, and he felt, and then his quote is, "We feel the so-called dossier was just that, a political document, and the American people need to know that. The intent of this memo is to shed light on past abuses in order to effectively prevent future abuses in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act." It says here, "It is not in any way intended to influence or undermine FBI Special Counsel Robert Mueller's ongoing investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election."
But you also have other Republicans, like former Congressman David Jolly, who's a frequent guest on this show, saying, folks, starting today, this is no longer about the Russians, this is now about the GOP. That's from a Republican.
Yeah.
I think it's just classic Donald Trump. His hand-picked FBI director that he put in place said you shouldn't do this. The Department of Justice said you shouldn't do this. And so what does Donald Trump do? He absolutely does what he was defying them. He went and did what he wanted.
Here's a fascinating little piece of this. The president was asked today, are you going to fire Rob Rosenstein, the assistant attorney general who is in charge of the Mueller investigation? And the president said, what do you think? And we'll see what happens. But earlier today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions was lauding praises on Rosenstein, and let's take a look.
Rod's had 27 years in the department. Rachel's had a number of years in the department previously, and so they both represent the kind of quality and leadership that we want in the department.
What are we to make of that? I mean, the president this afternoon indicating that he is not too happy with Rosenstein, and the Attorney General of the United States saying he is fantastic.
I think this is what you've been seeing with this administration for the last year. It's who's on first, and it's not helping us
regain our place in the world. It's not helping good government.
Jack?
It obviously there is a separation of the FBI and the Justice Department from the administration, and today played it out one more time. We've seen this same situation about 50 different times, whether it was North Korea or et cetera, all year, depending on which
But
agency.
declassifying memos is pretty big.
All right, we are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on the week in Washington right after we check the first alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about the week in Washington and Suncoast politics, and joining us for more are two of the most respected minds in local politics, Jack Brill, the vice chair of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Rita Ferrandino, the former chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party. So here we go again. At the beginning of the week, the president gives his first State of the Union address, and most people are saying he did a darn good job, just like he did last year when he gave his first address to a joint session of Congress. The problem last year is the next morning he tweeted something that was pretty outrageous, and he basically stepped on his own message. This week, unlike just about any president, Democrat or Republican, who usually then goes out after the State of the Union and campaigns for what they laid out, the president stayed in the White House and he wasn't even seen for the next 2 or 3 days. Jack, what is going on there?
That's just President Trump's individual style. But to your point, you know, the State of the Union address was excellent. You know, he was very disciplined. He talked about a lot of the agenda items coming up. We've got a lot of good things going on in the country. You know, we've got the stock market, even though it went down a little bit today.
A little bit, over 600.
All right, a little bit today.
And it has had a tumble since the State of the Union.
And,
I mean,
but you
the
look
fact is that
Look at
been
the
a bad
companies that are
economic
bringing their
week.
money back with the tax cuts. 2.4 million new jobs. African American unemployment is at a record low. It's got a long ways to go.
I'm sorry, Jack. This
Right.
came out today. The black unemployment rate, which President Trump claimed credit for reducing to a new record low, jumped last month by the most in 6 years. So the point is, the president didn't go out and campaign on his successes up until this point. And all of a sudden it comes Friday, and now you have this, and it totally steps on what the president laid out earlier in the week.
And the stock market has been teetering all week, and it came directly after the State of the Union. And I think what's really interesting, not only did the president sort of haul up in the White House, and now he's off,
to Mar-a-Lago.
to Mar-a-Lago here in Florida. And so, odd times.
But I got to say, but remember, if you're looking at the stock market, maybe, yes, they have a low week, but look where it is now, where it was 2 years ago.
It's a 666
But
point
still, it's a
drop
lot higher.
today.
I mean, tremendous error. But there's a lot of positive things. They're talking, you know, you've got a $1.6 trillion infrastructure program that's going to be discussed. You know, there's a lot of positive.
And the dreamers are still dreaming.
And that'll get resolved in the next, by the middle of March.
On the other hand, Rita, I am looking at another headline entitled, "Where Did the Wave Go?" Up until recently, the Democrats in a generic ballot, meaning you're asking people if they were to choose a generic Democrat versus a generic Republican, that was up to like 17 points. It was huge. Now, according to Nate Cohn, the Democratic advantage on the generic congressional ballot has dwindled since the heart of the tax debate in December. The nearly surveys, it was up, as I mentioned, by double digits. Now poll averages put the Democratic lead around 6 or 7 percentage points. What happened?
So I think what we're going to see is if the economy does waffle and we continue to see a drop in the Dow, Sarasotans in particular are going to feel that, and that's going to signal the resurgence of a wave. Here in Sarasota, we had a Women's March at the anniversary of the Women's March after the inauguration, and we had over 15,000 women and supporters just came out to march with very little political energy. So I'm not convinced that there's no movement.
But let me ask you this, and I ask you this ad nauseum, forgive me, but where is the message of the Democratic Party? Because I'm not seeing it.
Well, you just had a debate on Tuesday here where the Democratic candidate, Margaret Good, was very clear that we are not standing up. The Republican Party is supporting guns in schools. We're not doing that. She is not standing for, she believes in climate change, and she's standing up for our environment. She's standing up for public education. And so I think you are seeing the Democratic message in the candidates that are showing up to, and it's a hard race here in 72.
Right. Well, Rita did our segue for me.
Absolutely,
Jack, let's
yeah.
talk about that because, as most of our viewers know, we had a little debate this week. And it was really the first and it was the only opportunity for both James Buchanan, Margaret Good, and Libertarian Allison Foxall to show off their priorities and their command of the issues, Jack. And most people would say that all three candidates did really well. So what are we to take of it?
And to follow up with the debate, James obviously is for, funding of public schools, funding of charter schools. There was even a conversation in there that some of the funding was for private schools. That's not true. The public funding is for charter, and they're part of the public schools. And you look at the needs of higher education for being affordable in Florida. Obviously, health care was a major issue in the Medicaid. That was all discussed, and I think you mentioned about climate change. I remember James saying specifically, no oil rigs off the coast. We have to look at our future water supplies. So I think you've got to look at all three candidates made good points.
Let me both ask you this. I know, Rita, you have something that you want to say, but a lot of people look at this race here and they try to read the tea leaves. Whether this is a district that the president won by 5 points, which is not a tremendous amount around here. If there is a Democratic wave and the Democratic energy, is this race winnable? Are you looking at it in the same way, Rita?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say I thought you did a great job with the debate. I really commend you. It was the first time James Buchanan has been agreed to debate, and it was really fascinating, and I would love for you to share how your viewers can watch it again if they missed it.
Well, I appreciate that. It is on our website. It is on our website at mysuncoast.com, and it is on our other digital platforms as well. And we will be re-airing it on ABC 7.
The realities of the district, though, we have a plurality of 12 to 13 points in this district. You do have the NPA factor that's going on. Interesting. I mean, what's going to be, I think, really good about this race, it's early voting starts tomorrow. Both teams have everybody out at the 3 early voting polling places, the absentee chases. As of today, 18,827 absentee ballots have been returned.
Let me ask you about that, because a lot has been made about the possible impact that the Libertarian Allison Foxall will have on this race. She is obviously fiscally very conservative, socially liberal, and would you both agree that if she's taking votes away from anyone, it would probably be James Buchanan and not Margaret Good?
I would definitely say that, and anybody who watches the debate saw that she was very clearly a very conservative, fiscal conservative, and was very conservative, actually, I thought, on social issues. But getting back to the...
Except for marijuana, which she wants totally legalized. So,
There you go. So getting back to the district, which was your question to me, which is that this district has got a 45% Republican registration. And so the fact that Margaret Good is neck and neck and that this is so close shows that there's a wave. This is a very difficult district for a Democrat to win, and she's going to win it because she's a great candidate and quite capable.
Well, Jack, let me ask you this, because what the Republicans are best known for in these parts is your effort to get out the vote and closing. Mm-hmm. The question right now is, are Democrats upping their game? Tomorrow morning, Gwen Graham, the candidate for governor, is going to be here, and she's going out with an all-star team of Democrats going door to door down here. It looks like the Democrats right now have their act together in terms of knocking on doors. Are you concerned that, given the national mood, that Mr. Buchanan winning this is not a gimme?
Well, we all can have the showmanship. Everyone to bring in support for the candidates. But one thing that's unique, or not, is unique. Normally, the Democrats pull ahead in absentee voting. Our voters come out in early voting, and especially Election Day. And as of today, we've got a 350 vote lead, Republicans versus Democrats, in the absentee returns. This race already has 15% of the entire electorate has voted already in the absentee ballots. This thing could be a 26 to 30 point race, and with all the special elections that have been going on in the state, their total turnout's been 15 to 18%. We already have it in the absentees.
So Democrats would say having a 353 lead ballot return rate when you've got 45% of the voter registration is not doing well.
We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back for final thoughts in a moment. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. Of course, everybody remembers the famous quote from Tip O'Neill that all politics is local. But is it really? Do you both believe what's going on nationally is going to impact a race in a district that pretty much for the last few years, even though it's been redistricted, has been reliably Republican? Rita?
Absolutely. We know that all elections have become nationalized. You can see that, over the years it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And again, I think in Sarasota, the fact that, James Buchanan, son of Vern Buchanan, is going to toe the line of what his father's been doing. And, Donald Trump isn't having such a great week, especially with the Dow falling.
And glad I brought that up. But at the same time, you mentioned what Vern's doing. That's federal. Tallahassee is obviously a very separate world, and the things that everyone's doing up in Tallahassee are very different than what's happening in Washington. And if actually, the legislators have to react to what is happening in D.C. to make sure that everything's taken care of. But I do agree, no matter what, all politics is local. Whether it's county commission, House reps, these are the folks that impact our lives the absolute most, and that gets the most attention.
Well, I will remind you that we were talking to Frank Alcock the other day, who ran for state representative in 2016. He lost this very same district by only 4 points. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about all politics are local, then Jack, you're basically saying all bets are off.
This, the first minute, this is actually a really good race because it's a real race. But it's going to be a close finish. Obviously, planning on James winning. I think he'll be a great legislator. He's got the background from the local set. He's involved in the community. He's on the board of the Y. But it really will, end up being, down to every vote.
I think it's coming down to girl power, and I think that we have a great candidate. You just listed off. I think some of the issues that you'll see coming out the next week about, why does James Buchanan have a $22,000 a year salary reported when he owns 3 homes?
We asked him about that. We have to leave
you
it
did.
there. Yes. Thanks. Thank you both. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired, just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank both our guests for being here tonight. Jack Brill, the Vice Chair of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Rita Ferrandino, the former Chair of the Sarasota Democratic Party.